Maps is one of the most interesting places on the internet because we can quite literally explore every single corner of the world without ever leaving our couch. But believe it or not, if you know where to look, things get dark. I'm serious. That is right. Google Maps can also be a window into some of the strangest, creepiest, and just flat out most disturbing things ever captured on camera. The iceberg runs deep here, and the locations just get crazier as we move on. So grab a snack, sit back, and relax because we're going to be seeing entire cities abandoned overnight, mysterious figures hiding in plain sight, and scenes so disturbing that Google had to erase them from view. Without further ado, let's get into it. So for our first location, if you go to these coordinates and then you hop into Google Street View, you're going to end up on what looks like just a random road in the middle of Detroit. Now, whenever you see something that's blurred out on Google Maps, it's usually blurred out for a reason, and that's because of what was here before it was blurred out. It was this: a bunch of dudes hanging out on the balcony looking at the Street View car, and as you can see, one of the dudes has a weapon in his hand that he is pointing at the Google Street View car. Definitely not what you want to see when you're driving one of these. I used to think driving one of these cars would be like the coolest job in the world, but after seeing this, it might have changed my mind. With that being said, let's move on. If you go to these coordinates, you're going to end up in the middle of a desert in Australia. But something is a little different about this desert. As you can see, there's this random stick figure that's just carved out into the ground. It was apparently discovered in the 90s, and since it was discovered, a bunch of people have thrown a bunch of different theories out there, like aliens might have came to Earth and done it. We still really don't know. My guess is some sort of tribe used to live there, and then they carved it out. Maybe it was something they worshipped, but who knows? It's definitely interesting, that's for sure. Moving on, if you go to these coordinates, you're going to end up looking at some random dock that's in the Netherlands. And it looks like just a normal dock, but it didn't always look like this on the satellite image. A few years ago, the satellite image showed this, what looks like blood, as if someone dragged a dead body across it into the water. Now, a bunch of debates sparked after this whole thing went down. Some people said it was blood, some people said it was water, but it was later debunked that it was water from a dog who was in the water, then they got out and walked across it, so makes sense. Next, if you go to these coordinates, and then you hop into Google Street View, you're gonna see a bunch of blurry stuff, and once again, it's because of what used to be there. It was this: a bunch of random people staring straight at the camera like they have a death wish for the cameraman. Nobody knows to this day what they were doing, why they were doing it, if they were trolls, or if they're some sort of weird cult. We don't know. Anyways, moving on. If you go to these coordinates, and then go straight into Street View, you're gonna end up here. This really spooky abandoned building in the middle of some island off the coast of Japan. Every single thing about this place is the most eerie thing ever. All of the buildings are empty. They're all broken down and decrepit. And the story behind this place is pretty interesting. Apparently, this island was once the most densely populated place on Earth, with over 5,000 people living in these now abandoned buildings. All of these people were apparently working in an underseas coal mine for Mitsubishi, like the car company. Now, apparently all of the living conditions were absolutely horrible. A lot of people got sick and died. It was a pretty bad situation. And then one day they just ran out of coal to mine, so everybody left, and this is what we have now. Anyways, on to the next place. If you go to these coordinates and then you go into Street View, you're gonna end up here. As you can see, this place looks unbelievably chaotic. It's in Colombia, and this specific snapshot was taken in 2014. There's just a huge pile of trash, a bunch of people taking stuff from that pile. There's people sleeping on the side of the road, and what's crazy too is if you go back to like 2012, that trash was just there for 2 years. The pile just got bigger. Apparently, this place was so dangerous that it was known as an independent republic of crime. It was strictly off limits to police, so they just kind of forgot about it and let everything go down. I'm not even sure how the Google Street View car was able to drive by this place safely. If I am the guy in that car, I am just losing my mind right here, praying for my life that I make it out alive. The area was also apparently full of torture chambers inside of the buildings, and they belonged to the gang. Some of the worst things imaginable went down here because of the gang that I couldn't even elaborate on here on YouTube. Now, luckily, because of how bad it got over time, the government finally stepped in around 2016, and they completely cleaned it up. This is what it looked like in 2018. A completely different place. It's actually wild, the difference. Anyways, let's head over to our next location. But first, I want to take a real quick moment to thank the sponsor of this video, Raycon. They recently sent me their Essential Open earbuds, which I've been using a ton lately, and I genuinely love them. Now, what's so unique about these earbuds is that they keep your ears completely open while still delivering crystal clear sound. Now, a lot of you may not know this, but I'm actually in college right now, and these are like the perfect thing for walking to class. During the week, I have to cross the road like 10 times a day walking to and from class, and with these earbuds, I get incredible audio while still being fully aware of what's happening around me. They're super lightweight and comfortable comfortable too, to the point where sometimes I completely forget I'm wearing them. And probably my favorite thing about Raycon is the value. I have tried like so many different brands when it comes to headphones and earbuds, and these give you that same premium audio quality as all of the big names, but for about half of the price. Now listen, Black Friday is around the corner. Raycon audio products are 30% off site-wide. From their everyday essentials to all of their latest releases, now could not be a better time to upgrade your sound or get ahead on gifting. Now keep in mind, these early deals will not last long, so make sure to get on top of them before it's all over. Just click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/H1T1Open to get 30% off Raycon audio products site-wide. That's buyraycon.com/H1T1Open. And once again, thank you to Raycon for sponsoring the video. Let's get back to it. If you go to these coordinates and then you hop into Google Street View, you're gonna end up in this lake. And as you can see, hanging from like all of the trees right here is a bunch of decaying, mutilated dolls, some of them missing their arms and legs. It's just such a weird situation. Why does it exist? Apparently, there's like a whole lore to all of this. It's on an island in Mexico, and there was some dude who apparently like took care of this island. And he claims that one day he saw this young girl who had drowned and died in the water. And for some reason, he felt like in order to honor her spirit, he was gonna find every single doll he could and hang it on the trees by the water where he saw her. Now it's like a public place where people like this guy can go to take pictures, but I wouldn't want to go here. I think looking at it on Google is just enough for me. This dude basically dedicated his life to finding dolls in trash cans or in the canal and then putting them right here until he died in 2001 and couldn't really do it anymore. Since the island became open to the public, apparently there have also been theories that these dolls move their heads or their arms or even blink. Some of the visitors even say that they've heard these dolls whispering to each other, so I'm gonna stay really far away from these coordinates in real life. Let's go to the next place. So if you go to these coordinates and then hop into Street View, you're gonna end up here. Looks pretty familiar, right? North Korea. I've made a lot of videos about North Korea. Now the reason I put this in the video is simply because it kind of blows my mind that there even is a Google Street View that exists for North Korea. This place looks incredibly dystopian. Look at that skyline. That is unreal. They have this big area that I'm sure they use for all of their communist parades, but who even was able to take this picture? Okay, so this is Kim Il-sung Square, and Aram Pan took it. Singapore 360. So I guess some random Singaporean dude was actually given permission by North Korea to take this and upload it to Google. Super interesting. Let's move on. If you go to these coordinates and then you hop into Google Street View, there's more dolls, as you can see. Not as scary. They're not like ripped apart like the ones in the last one, but still really weird. These dolls are in a city in Japan, and they seem to kind of just be doing like everyday activities. Like these guys, I don't know if they're waiting at a bus stop or whatever, and then this guy's kind of just hanging out on the side of the road. There's more people over here. This town is apparently full of dolls. There's a weird story behind this one. Also just not as bad as the last one, but still so strange and creepy. Now, apparently the reason this exists is because this town was like a dying town. Everybody was leaving the town, except for this one woman. There was this one woman there who was older, and she couldn't really leave, but she was getting lonely because everybody she knew was leaving. So she decided to make dolls that replaced everyone who left the city, and that's why we have this. I almost feel bad for the lady. It's quite depressing that all of her friends left, so she just had to replace them with dolls so that she could pretend they're still there. That's like so sad and creepy. Anyways, let's move on. So if you go to these coordinates and then you hop on a Street View, you're gonna end up in Albany, New York, on what looks like a beautiful little street on a perfect day, but it wasn't always like that. Now, if I go to see more dates and then we go back down to 2011, I think it is, there's a full-on police shootout. This dude's like fully behind the car. He's got a weapon on him and he's ducking down. They were in the middle of something as the Google Street View just fully drove by and caught it all on camera. There's more cops over here. This guy also looks like he has a weapon on him. So clearly there was some sort of crime being committed. This is insane. You don't see something like this too often on Google Street View. Let's find the next location. If you go to these coordinates and then you hop in a Street View, you're gonna end up on a random road in the middle of Botswana, which is in Africa. And as you can see, there's a little donkey kind of hanging out there. He looks happy, right? Until you click forward. What happened to the donkey? He's down. As you can see, once you go forward, the donkey's down. So this started a whole controversy back in the day when the first person who discovered it posted it. Everybody was mad at Google, rightfully so. I mean, a donkey hit and run isn't very ethical. But Google was quickly able to prove that the donkey was not hit by the Google Street View car. It was just rolling around in the sand, actually having a good time. Maybe the donkey saw the Google Street View car and he was ready for his moment. He wanted to pretend he got hit and start a big controversy. Thank God he's okay. Anyways, let's check out the next place. If you go to these coordinates, you're gonna end up looking at a satellite image where engraved in the ground in huge letters is the word help, and it's there like multiple times. There's also, if you zoom really close, it says like Trafico, which is is traffic in Spanish, I think. A lot of people thought something really serious was going on, especially with the word traffic. So people kind of panicked. They thought someone actually needed real help. But apparently the whole thing ended up just being some bored homeless dude who I guess wanted to stir the pot and fool the whole internet. Moving on, if you go to these coordinates, you're gonna notice a satellite image of a very oddly shaped building, as you can see here. Makes you wonder how in the world did this get approved? How did this get passed? Even crazier, it's a building that's apparently owned by the US military. It's apparently a US Navy base in San Diego, and the designer of the building thought that these L shapes would be convenient, so they put them all in the same area, and satellite imagery just didn't really exist at the time, so he had absolutely no idea this is how it was going to come out. Once satellite imagery did become a thing, a bunch of people saw this, and they were like, wait a minute, this building has a really awful shape from a high up view. I'm not gonna lie though, even without satellite imagery, I feel like with everything you have to do in order to plan out and build a building, it's unbelievable that they like never noticed this. Maybe they noticed it after it was too late to switch it up, but this one's mind-blowing for sure. Next up, if you go to these coordinates, you're gonna notice that you're in the middle of the mountains in Canada, but as you can see, they have a really strange shape, and that's because it looks exactly like the side of a human's face. It's almost too perfect. The crazy thing is that nobody even designed this. This was all completely natural, and it somehow so accurately represents a facial structure. I will say it does blow my mind that someone was somehow able to like spot this while just, I guess, mindlessly scrolling through the middle of nowhere on Google Maps. It makes me wonder, are there any other places that are really interesting on Google Maps that nobody has even really discovered? Definitely something to think about. Now, speaking of random faces naturally showing up in nature, we got another one. If you go to these coordinates, you're gonna end up in the middle of nowhere once again in Antarctica. And this one also resembles a facial structure, but it's a lot creepier, I will say. It's sideways, as you can see, so the eyes are right here. It's a little bit distorted. The mouth is right here. It almost looks alien, if that makes any sense. Once again, though, it blows my mind that someone's just randomly looking at this massive plot of nothing, and they were somehow able to point that out. But yeah, enough with the weird faces. Let's move on. If you go to these coordinates, you're gonna end up looking at a lake in Iraq, and as you can see, it's a normal lake, but that wasn't always the case. In 2007, Google Earth users who were over here noticed that this entire lake was blood red. This ended up giving it the nickname of Blood Lake, and to this day, nobody knows exactly what caused this or why it happened. Some people say it was like pollution from nearby factories. Other people say it could have been contamination from nearby slaughterhouses or some sort of bacterial algae infestation. Really interesting though. But you know what's more interesting? Flying rabbits. And that's what brings us to our next location. If you go to these coordinates and then hop into Street View, you're gonna notice that this image was taken on Street View in 2013, and as you can see, there's a rabbit that's just absolutely flying. He looks like he's about 12 feet in the air. This almost doesn't look possible. Now, unfortunately, people say it didn't actually get this high up in the air, and the distortion of the Google Street View car is what makes it look like it was so high up. Or this rabbit's really just one of a kind. Maybe the world will never know. Moving on, we got another really creepy one that they ended up having to blur out. If you go to these coordinates and then you hop into Street View, you're gonna notice a massive blur. It's just one house on this street. Now, that's because of the controversy that was started from this house. There was some sort of creature on the balcony, and it looked really strange. It started a whole internet discussion on forums about what many people were calling the balcony creature. And I will say, if it was like 2 a.m. and I'm walking through this street and then saw that thing standing on the balcony staring at me, it would startle me a little bit. Now, I did do some research and I found this Reddit thread of some dude who actually has the same statue. And apparently it's just some regular old statue, but this person decided to put it on their balcony facing the street. I'm sure the owner did not realize it would somehow become some crazy internet conspiracy theory. Anyways, on to the next one. If you go to these coordinates, you're gonna notice that you're on an island. But this isn't just any island. Let me zoom out. As I zoom out, you can see that this island is basically in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of other little islands that are in the middle of nowhere. And these islands are known as some of the most inaccessible places on Earth. The specific island that we're looking at is quite literally named Inaccessible Island. Now, what's interesting about this place, though, is the fact that right here, if we zoom in on the pin, there's just this random little hut that a bunch of Google Maps nerds once noticed. This is a better quality picture of that hut. It almost looks like some random person is living the most peaceful, calm life there, away from all of the chaos of the world. They probably don't even know what 6'7" means. They probably think 6'7" is just a normal number. Anyways, bad jokes aside, apparently it's just some random, like, science research space that they put there for all of the people who do, and then examine the nature or do whatever they do there. But not a lot of people go to this place, as you can see, because of how hard it is to get there. There are actually some cruises that will take you to these islands, so hey, maybe at 10 million subscribers, I'll say screw it and go on a trip there. But yeah, that just about wraps things up here. There's a lot of really crazy crazy places on Google Maps. There's a bunch more. So if you want to see another video like this, let me know and subscribe. I love you guys. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.